This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Today let's talk about one of those characters in the Naruto series that simply disappears because Kishimoto kind of forgets about the character and doesn't try to develop him any longer after the character had his purpose in the narrative, which is unfortunate. Sometimes Kishimoto does some stuff that's questionable in the story, and this character is going to be Baki, the Jonin from the Sand Village, the sensei of the Sand siblings who accompanied them to the Chunin Exams in Naruto Part 1. Baki had a very interesting design, certainly different from the norm with that weird turban thing, and he was chosen by the Kazekage to carry out a very important mission, which was to take care of the Sound siblings, including Gaara, the kid who hosted the demon Shukaku, the One Tail, and the Kazekage knew that Gaara could go crazy anytime, so assigning Baki to watch over Gaara is not something he would give to a weak shinobi. He was a Jonin after all, and therefore he was an elite ninja. Now in the preliminaries of the Chunin Exams, Baki mostly watches everybody fighting and worries about Gaara a lot when Gaara starts to be a little more crazy in the fight against Rock Lee. He doesn't do much more than that. Baki's most important feat in the entire series was his fight against Hayate. That was pretty much the only fight we've ever seen the character in. The other fights he participates are not really on screen, but Hayate, the proctor of the preliminary Chunin Exams round, finds out Baki is aligned with Kabuto, an enemy spy, and they're plotting against the Lee village. Hayate attacks Baki, which just kinda lets himself get hit by Hayate's sword attack and tanks the attack with his vest from the Sand village. Apparently they're very good vests. And then he says, oh, Leaf ninjas are so talented. He kinda compliments Hayate on his sword work. Then he just says, well, but what can you do about a blade you cannot see? And uses a wind style jutsu to cut Hayate open real quick, killing the guy pretty much instantly. That wasn't so good, was it? Now, Hayate was hailed as a talented shinobi, and Baki himself said it, but Baki destroyed the guy, meaning that he was pretty decently powerful, and the missions given to him by the Kazekage confirm that. He's a very good wind style user, and the only one other than Temari we see in Naruto Part 1. But during the break, when they had some time to train for the final round of the Chunin Exams, Baki got the mission to watch over the Sand siblings and carry out the final plan to destroy the Leaf village. The Kazekage needed to push the Leaf into war because the feudal lord of the land of wind, his own land, was no longer buying the services of ninjas as often as he would, so the Sand village was falling into decadence and its economy wasn't very good, so they needed to stir up some trouble to once again acquire demand for their shinobi. It was pretty interesting when Naruto went into geopolitics, to be honest. Didn't happen very often, but I like that type of stuff. Still, Baki got one of the toughest missions during the Konoha Crush Arc. He had to make sure the Sound siblings would obey him and that Gaara would be under control. It was also to ensure Gaara would go crazy in the Leaf village itself, using the power of Shukaku to help in the assaults and destroy the village quite substantially. Unfortunately for Baki, when the invasion started, Gaara had already been damaged quite significantly by Sasuke's Chidori and pretty much passed out, unable to summon the power of Shukaku to wipe out the village. Not that Shukaku by himself would wipe out the entire village, he would definitely do some damage, but I believe at least that the shinobi from the Leaf village would have counters against Shukaku. I mean, they were able to counter the Nine Tails for a substantial amount of time, and granted, Hiruzen was fighting against the Nine Tails back in the day. That was a big help, and Hiruzen wouldn't be available because he was fighting against Orochimaru in the Chunin Exams. But there's an abyss of difference between the Nine Tails and Shukaku. It's literally the strongest versus the weakest tail beast, so Shukaku wouldn't be nice to deal with, but certainly not as problematic as the Nine Tails. I mean, Naruto pretty much by himself managed to defeat Shukaku and Gaara, and Jiraiya arrived anyways in the middle of the invasion, destroying a lot of snakes. He could have used his summons to counter Shukaku just like Naruto did with Gamabunta. Still, Baki was fighting in the invasion and he kind of failed at his job. He told Temari and Kankuro to take Gaara away because he would be a liability, not being able to move, so that they could maybe bring Gaara back once he was healthy, and it didn't really work out for Baki because Genma, the Beast, sent Sasuke after Gaara, and then Kakashi sends Naruto, Sakura, and Shikamaru after Sasuke to help him out against Gaara, which was a good call because otherwise Sasuke would have died. Baki fights against Genma and presumably other shinobis from the Leaf village inside the Chunin Exams arena. The arena is very much destroyed and heavily damaged from fighting in the end of the Konoha Crush Arc, and unfortunately we don't get to see Baki or Genma duking it out on screen. The only real thing we get to see in the anime is Genma countering one of Baki's kunais that he tossed against Sasuke with his own toothpick, which is a very Chad move from Genma. Genma and Baki do look tired in the end of the arc as they stare each other down, but they are not terribly hurt. So the fight was a stalemate. Bear in mind, the entire Konoha Crush ordeal lasts for over an hour because it took a really long time for Hiruzen and Orochimaru's tug of war with the Reaper Death Seal to be resolved. So they fought for a long time, and they still pretty much tied, which is impressive for both sides. Baki then retreats, and on the way back to the Sand Village, he finds the Kazekage's body. He was killed by Orochimaru when they were coming to the Leaf Village, and learns about Orochimaru's betrayal. After that, he doesn't really appear again in Naruto Part 1, but he shows up in the Kazekage Rescue Arc, and we see that he is in the High Council of the Sand Village, which makes sense. He was a pretty powerful Jonin, presumably one of the most powerful ninjas available to the Sand Village, even though he is a bit young for that type of work. I mean, there are two counselors in the Leaf Village, and they're both pretty damn old. They're Hiruzen's age, but maybe his position there as a counselor wasn't so non-combative. It's likely that he acted more like an advisor, just like Shikaku was acting with Tsunade or Shizune, or even Shikamaru with Naruto when he becomes the Hokage, but still, he does dress differently with those robes that kind of indicate a more senior position that doesn't really involve combat. It's likely that the politics in the Sand Village work differently, and also Gaara was a pretty young Kage, so he definitely needed some counseling. Baki pretty much leads the ground assault against Deidara when they were trying to back up Gaara when he was fighting the Akatsuki member. They didn't do a lot of stuff from the ground, they were just shooting some large ballista bolts against Deidara, which didn't work very well. Other than that, they pretty much washed the entire fight above the Sand Village. They didn't do anything, not that they could do much, but Baki didn't help a whole lot. They told Kankuro not to go after Gaara after he was captured, but obviously Kankuro didn't obey him. And yeah, that was pretty much what Baki did in this arc. Sure, he was helping the Leaf Ninjas in there to get information on the Akatsuki and to heal Kankuro from Sasuke's poison. After the Kazekage Rescue Arc, he disappears from the story, man. Baki vanishes. I mean, I lie. He appears in one more panel in the manga. When Gaara is about to leave for the 5 Kage Summit, we see a shot of several Sand Village ninjas, including those girls that fanboy over Gaara, as well as Chiyo's brother. And right next to Chiyo's brother, we see Baki. It's very far away. It's not very big, but he's there. And he's just looking over at Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro going to the 5 Kage Summit. That's it. He doesn't appear at all during the war arc, which kinda baffles me. Yes, the last time we see Baki in this panel here, he's still wearing the robes of a counselor, meaning that maybe he's retired from shinobi life and he's just serving as a senior to the Sand Village, which is weird because Baki is 34 years old in Naruto Shippuden. It's not exactly very old, so it's weird that he's just going to quote-unquote retire as a ninja to serve in a council where he doesn't see a lot of combat, especially because he was one of the more talented and powerful ninjas the Sand Village had to offer. Before we continue, let me talk to you guys a little bit about today's sponsor, Squarespace, the best place online for you to create and manage your own website. With Squarespace, you'll be able to build your online presence, creating a website from scratch, or using one of the several templates that they have available to you that look extremely professional. If you have a product and you'd like to sell it online, use Squarespace. If you want to create a blog, Squarespace. If you want to start a podcast, Squarespace is going to provide you all the tools you need to do that, while making the process enjoyable and also affordable. So head to squarespace.com/Daigonite right now so you can set up your website, and when you're ready, using my coupon Daigonite will get you 10% off your first purchase, so don't waste any time. The link's in the description below. Now let's go back to the video. Baki doesn't appear in the war arc at all. He's not fighting against the White Zetsu army and the Edo Tensei. And we saw a billion people in the war arc. Even people we never even thought we were gonna see again, we saw there, but not Baki, which sure, he's not exactly extremely important or pivotal for the story, but he was a semi-important character back in Naruto Part 1 at least, and he had some relevance, especially because in the war arc, every single village is gonna play a major role, and we don't know a lot of people from the Sand Village. Baki was one of the more recognizable people in that place. Also, if you think about it, we got a lot of ninjas from the Cloud Village in the war arc that we got to meet. We got some ninjas from the Stone Village. Not so many from the Mist Village, if we're being honest, but we do get a couple. But the ninjas we get to see the least in the war arc are are the Sand Ninjas. Now, maybe this is because the Sand Village had more focus than the other three, other than the Leaf Village, obviously, before the war arc, so Kishimoto felt like we didn't need as much Sand Village action. Of course, we got Gaara, but yeah, Gaara is like the main character from the Sand Village. But other than him, the Sand Village didn't get a lot of love during the war arc, if we're being honest. And Baki not being in the war is just kind of weird. We got a whole canon battle on Mifune versus Hanzo. Now, sure, Hanzo does have some relevance in the lore, but it's very passing, and it's a character we just saw through flashbacks. But Baki is a character that's been with us since part 1, and he's just forgotten. He's not in the war arc at all. Not even in the filler episodes of the war arc. We don't see what this guy is doing at all during the war. I guess he was just sleeping, or he just felt sick and couldn't really attend the war because, yeah, the war arc lasted for 2 days in universe. So if you were pretty sick during those days, if you had a little bit of diarrhea and you were not fit to fight, I guess you just skipped the entire war. When I was reading the Naruto manga as it was coming out during the war arc, I just assumed Baki had died after the Kazekage Rescue arc off screen because we just never see the guy again, even though we had ample opportunity. And I guess I missed when they showed Baki overlooking Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro leaving for the 5 Kage sign, because let's be real, it's a really quick shot, easy to miss, especially because Baki's minuscule in there. So I just thought the guy had died, but apparently he just wasn't in the war. And yeah, maybe he's a senior in the Sand Village now and he doesn't really fight anymore, but the war was a pretty desperate situation. And I would think the ninjas like Baki, who are in a pretty good age, they're not too old, they're very experienced, all things considered, they would go to the battlefield, or they would at least help with non-combat stuff like strategy or anything really. But apparently Baki just didn't participate in the war. There's nothing anywhere about what Baki was doing during the war arc, and he does not appear in the manga or in the anime. But he is not dead because Baki appears in light novels afterwards, and apparently those are canon. Of course, they're not really canon, but they are canon at the same time. Doesn't really matter. And I understand old seniors not going to the war arc. That makes sense. I wouldn't see Chio's brother going to the war, or the 2 counselors from the Leaf Village, but Baki, yes, he may be a counselor, but he's 34, dude. Go fight for the Sand Village and the entire world. What are you waiting for? I really think Kishimoto just kind of forgot about the character, and maybe he remembered him later and thought, oh, I guess it's too late to introduce him into the war arc now. I don't know, it's just weird. Like, sure, you can say Kishimoto quote-unquote forgets about some characters in the war arc, like Anko was just lying, Kabuto's cave, Yamato was being controlled by the enemy, and then he was controlled by Spiral Zetsu. You could even say Kishimoto pretty much forgot about everybody in the Konoha 12 except for Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura during the war arc. But when you say Kishimoto forgot about them, it's metaphorical, because you can actually see them in the story, you know what they're doing a little bit, they appear here and there. But Baki, no, he literally is not present. So I think Kishimoto literally forgot about him. How strong do you think this guy was? Leave it in the comments below. Also, like this video to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Those things really help me out. And watch this other video right here from our cool Naruto content. Thank you so much for watching.